Okay, good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to our MAT181 class at LD Woosley Bethany College. We welcome you all to our online session, most especially our YouTuber as well as our live streamer from Facebook. We're live. And this for the purpose of continuing our lesson for MAT181 Research in Mathematics. So far, we have discussed the overview of basic concepts about research as well as the objectives. I just would like to have some sound check. Research in Mathematics. So far, we have discussed. Okay, so far I'm good. So welcome all of you, both for our YouTubers and Facebook live streamer. So we are actually continuing on our mathematics research. So this is a senior year course intended for undergraduate or Bachelor of Secondary Education major in mathematics to have its final paper or output prior to his practicum and other field studies. So that's the purpose. So far, we have discussed some of the basic concepts in research, its definition, importance. Now we will go to the purpose. So my approach is modular, because next week will be our prelim examination. So for my student, so yeah, they need to prepare for a written test. Okay, so we have here Alright, so we have purpose of research. No? So based on the work of Almeida, I'll be quoting some of the purposes of research. So there's stated clearly and explicitly in a format appropriate for the style of investigation. So there are purposes, no? And that is correspondence to the mode or appropriateness of style, appropriateness of the method of research as well as investigation. So the purpose and direction of research reflects the goal it has to meet. The purpose of research may be organized into three groups. Or what the researcher is trying to accomplish, explain a new topic, describe a social phenomena, etc. and etc. So one of the category is what we call under the purposes of research. Acknowledging Pastor Lem. Thank you, Pastor Lem, for dropping by. Okay, we have our purpose of research. Number one is for exploratory and formulative research. And formulative, something like that. Bubulol ako. Okay, exploratory, no? There need to be an exploration or formulation that is ongoing as purposes of research. According to our reference, the research goal is to formulate more precise question. So the exploratory research is intended for further research, no? So intended for further research. Future research can answer. Exploratory research helps ensure that no more rigorous, more conclusive future study will not begin with an inadequate understanding. So the future research or exploratory or formulative research should not begin with an inadequate understanding. Okay, acknowledging M's Estrada Vlogs. Salamat kapatid sa iyong pagdating. Thank you for dropping by. This is my MAT181 class, Research in Mathematics. This is for senior undergraduate course in Bachelor of Science, Bachelor in Secondary Education major in Mathematics. Thank you, sir. M's Estrada. Siya po ay may live stream ng alas 11 ng gabi, Pinas time. Salamat, sir. Dahil dyan, because it's your first time, bibigyan kita ng jacket, kapatid. Yan. Alright, so thank you, sir, for dropping by. So I suppose by your symbol, you are a great Sapphire, Team Sapphire. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, no? Kasi maraming mga gems ang PKCM group. Okay, so exploratory, no? So sometimes we call it an empirical research because the purposes of future research, there is no need for the inadequate understanding as far as research. Hindi ka na babalik sa zero, no, in your research. When you have this foundational research, no, ito na yung pagbabatayan ng mga future researches. Okay, so yan yung mga makikita natin na this is more experimental perhaps, or these are exploratory, formulative, no, and perhaps in relationship of two variables. When these are still studied in different contexts and situation, they may make use of the previous study. So yan yung makikita natin na kagandahan nitong exploratory at formulative research, na kung saan this will be a matter of, or a basis of future research instead of starting from scratch. No, yung nakakalungkot na kapag scratch, medyo mahirap yung yung pag-usad ng research, no? Samantalang kung meron ng mga basic researches or foundational researches that will help you to apply the same study with different context and situation, no, ay makikita natin na mas magiging mabilis, no? There's efficiency on the time of the research. So the research presents a picture of the specific details of a situation. So these are what we call variables, social setting, and relationship. I'm sorry. I'm already discussing the next one. So yung in terms of exploratory, no, medyo mahina na yung mata ko, hindi ko nabasa. So this is more for future study. No? So ang buzzword dito, research, based research for future study. Yan. So, ito na yung pagbabatayan. No? So that, for future study will not begin in an inadequate understanding on the nature of the problem. Halimbawa, yung basic understanding ng behavior ng mga bata, so hindi na bago yan. No? You could look on previous study wherein the same variables or parameters had been involved and apply it to your context. Of course, there will be varieties of variables. So, may mga pagkakaiba-iba. Pwede mo pagsama-samahin yung iba't ibang mga base research or yung mga former research doon, no, sa iyong bagong research na i-apply mo sa iyong context. So, ayan mga kapatid. Yung tawa ko hindi umaano dito sa Alright. So, yun mga kapatid na makikita natin. No? So this is more of no. So kung tutusin, medyo may challenging tong gantong klase ng research. No? No, kasi you explore, perhaps these are what we call virgin topics na tinatawag, no? So-called virgin topics, no? Perhaps we could virgin topics or areas, no? Areas na lang para mas virgin areas of research wherein there are no research had been made before. Then you may have which presents a picture of specific details, no? So there are details or description of a situation, social setting, or relationship. The major purpose of descriptive research is to describe, no? So there is this description of characteristic of population or phenomena. So we could have a description of the population, perhaps by getting samples, or of course you have taught that in your advanced or basic statistics for research regarding the sample techniques that would make your sampling valid depending on the method of sampling to use in a particular type of research. So, ayan, makikita natin. No? So, it seeks to determine the answer who, what, where, and how question. So, description. So, these are the basic idea here is to answer who, where, what, and how questions. So that is actually a description of a population or phenomena. Yan. So yan ang descriptive research, mga kapatid. Alright? So this according to research purposes. And then we have explanatory research. That's the third one. Explanatory research. So from the word itself, no, it is the why, to answer why. No, kanina yung description, itong mga bagay nito, who, where, what, how, but explanatory research is to answer why. To answer why, the why of that population or phenomena, no, for the purpose of exploratory research. No? It builds an exploratory and descriptive research and goes to identify the reasons for something that to occur. No? So kasi yung descriptive, di-describe mo lang katangian ng populasyon. Perhaps your pupils or perhaps the faculty profile. No? So these are sorts of descriptions na makikita natin. Acknowledging our 2 top chat from our YouTube channel. So explanation, explanatory research. No? So ayan. No? So it's a combination, no, of explanation of why and descriptive doon sa ating 4 W's. Tama ba? 3 W's and H, no? Yung who, where, what, and how, and then why. So normally nagkakaroon ng pagsasama ang descriptive at exploratory. Okay? So yan po yan, mga kapatid. Okay, descriptive research and goes on to identify the reasons for something that occurs. So the reasons. So reasons. Reasons for something that occurs. Yeah, exploratory research looks at causes and reasons. For example, research are interested in learning why some children bully other children. The why. So hindi siya lang yung description ng kunyari yung halimbawa yung kumbaga study on the bullying in a particular school. You're just describing it. Now you may answer it who, where, what, and how, but to answer its why, it's more on exploratory research, mga kapatid. Ayan po yan. Okay? And then there are other purposes of research for this matter. So, pero ang pinakaano dito, normal ang exploratory and formulative is more on the graduate studies. Lalo na yung mga, in my case, my doctoral level, I have this formula. So, I'm doing a reputation paper. This ating, I think you're loyal to Ilocana. No, ayan. So, welcome Royce Vlog. Dahil dyan, may jacket ka sa akin. Yan. Kanina na jacketan ko na si Ems. Salamat Royce sa iyong pagpunta. So dahil dyan may jacket ka sa akin. Yan lang. May problema lang sa network. Medyo mabagal yung network ko. No? Okay, I'm in. Pero very poor talaga, grabe. Very poor ang network. Hindi ko alam anong nangyayari dito. Okay. Sana okay na, no? So, yan, talagang medyo may turmoil yung ano natin, turbulence. Tawag dito turbulence sa network. Alright, so we are continuing. So, palaging gantong oras, no? Ganto rin yung subject ko ng nakaraan eh. Talagang grabe yung ano eh. Dali mga kapatid, medyo inom lang tayo. Yung tubig. So these are the three purposes of research. So we have here again the exploratory research or formulative. So these are base research for future study, perhaps virgin areas of research. No? So normally this type of research is for the graduate studies, masters, or even more especially PhD. No? So yan yung, though it could be. There's possibility for undergrad, even for senior high school to undergo exploratory studies. Lalo na yung mga virgin areas sa research. Yan, pwede natin yan makita. No? Alright, so far okay na yung stability natin. No? Yan. Okay, so far. Tuloy lang tayo. Okay, so exploratory, no? And then descriptive, this is more on the description of a phenomena or population. So it answers who, where, what, and how. But of course, it may involve exploratory or the explanation of to answer why and reasons for something to occur. Now, the other purposes, so based on our outline, okay. Sadali lang guys. Oh, thank you. Nakakasunod na yung ano. Pero ang Facebook talaga malalaglag na naman. So, mas ideal talagang broadcast sa YouTube, no? Based on my experience. Other purposes that we may have. Research provides a scientific basis for any practice or methodology. No? So, it could be scientific research. It's a scientific basis for any practice or methodology in any field, no? So it could be a scientific research that would be a practice for any or basis for any practice or methodology. Perhaps engineering, what would be a best practice? There could be some scientific investigation or research based on your discipline. No? So for engineering, best practices are done even in the installation of devices as well as electronic systems in a building. So yan, no? So lumalabas yung pagiging engineer ko. But yan, so sa engineering and applied sciences ay nagagamit ito. Alright, so those are one. So this is important since the interest of the entire operation and all of the members of the institution or organization is at stake. So yung mga practice, any practice or methodology in the field, lalo na for policy implementation, no? So there must be a scientific basis, no, for policy implementation, most especially not only for schools but of course for government and businesses as well, no? Business and other entities, no, even for NGOs as well, no, and others, etc. No, so we could use scientific research for that provides scientific basis for any practice or methodology, no? Lalo na yung mga policy implementation, hindi ka mag-i-implement ng isang pulisiya na will not undergo research, no? For instance, yung bakuna. So yan yung ano ba yung i-approve ng Bureau of Foods and Bureau of Food and Drugs, no, BIPAD. Tama ba ako? So yung nag-a-approve niyan. So there must be an approval to this bureau or agency prior to the usage or the commercial use of this vaccine to be used for public purposes, no? So kailangan ng masusing research niyan, scientific basis, we have this testings, etc. So maraming mga procedures yan. So yan yung isang purpose ng research. Kasi kung walang ganito, naku po, baka kung ano lang iturok sa inyong brand at wala naman talagang, hindi naman bakuna pala yun, no? So lalo pa nagkaroon ng problema. Okay. So, yun po mga kapatid, no? So, yun yung iba nating mga nakikita. Another is, another category of purposes is that research undertaken for sustainable development, no? Research that for sustainability. So yung basis for scientific, this for our policy implementation. However, to sustain a particular system, it may pertain to a system or management, or policies in terms sustainability, no, and etc. So yung mga dapat nagpapatuloy, so we need to research how to improve, no, what we could do to improve a system that's already built in, no? An existing one, so that we may have an improved system. How could we improve an existing system? So it could be a research for sustainability. Ayan. Research to undertaken for sustainable development and for further productivity. So that's the purpose, no? Yung production pala, no? Policy, of course, production. Siyempre, ang gusto natin, mas maraming production in terms of economics. So, there must be production in any field, no? Even in education. Of course, the management of schools is also needs sustainability. As of the moment, because of the pandemic, most, what is really badly hit by the pandemic are the private school, I would say, no? So, yung kanilang, some that private school I know have already closed because of lack of students. The students are moving also to the public school system. So yan yung nangyari, no? So of course, for it to sustain, there must be a stopgap measure, and this is based on research as well. Ano yung mga tinatawag na worst case scenario in a particular system, like this, no? Like this pandemic, this is very unexpected. However, we must at least have a degree of risk, no? Of yung risk factor na tinatawag sa isang management, no? Lalo na ngayon, nagka-COVID na, ito, ini-include na to sa mga risk na tinatawag, no? So, though hindi siya nag-occur ng madalas, no? Pero yung kanyang epekto ay talagang malubha. So every management, perhaps system, policies, or production should factor in the effect of this pandemic that will eventually, of course, repeated in the future, just like what happened to Ebola before in East Africa and other diseases or virus infection in some other areas. No? Perhaps looking back on that Spanish flu in the early 20th century or 1910, something like that on that area, wherein it also killed so much in Europe. It's good thing hindi ito mabagal ang pag-spread dito dahil wala pang Philippine Airlines yung time na yun. Puro galleon trade na galing sa sa Spain. No? So perhaps that's the reason. And because, of course, the emerging technologies also speed up the virus, no? Yung spreading, no? Talaga nga naman yung aeroplano and other technologies, no? Massive transportation perhaps. So these are the parameters that is needed to sustain a system, no? Perhaps in an educational system, how private schools be sustained in this situation, in this pandemic situation. So for policy as well, do we maintain this particular policy or we need to alter some of, or perhaps we need to kumbaga tanggalin na tong pulisiya na ito o baguhin ang pulisiya o perhaps yung mga policy na dapat may mga parameters dito na iibahin. So these are the things, no? Acknowledging LHL. Salamat Ma'am LHL. Thank you for dropping by. Welcome to my MAT181 class. This is Research in Mathematics for senior college students. No? They are graduating students. However, they're not around, so I'm doing a monologue here. So yung maliit na screen, that's supposedly a Google Meet screen. Wala, ako lang yung nandyan. So mahirap talaga mag-monologue na lecture. No? Nevertheless, for the sake of my students, so I need some explanation, though I already send modules for them, for their readings, no? As one of the facilitators of learning. So we need to explain further and perhaps we could flesh out whatever theories written on their textbook as well. No? So that's the responsibility of as teachers or professors, or sometimes we call ourselves facilitator of learning. So because we have changed the paradigm from just being ang tawag ba doon? Kumbaga, yung tayong center of learning, now we allow our students to discover themselves by exploratory learning, readings perhaps, no? Allowing them to have some flexibility, lalo na sa mga online class. We cannot really teach as much as we are teaching in a classroom setup. So there are maximum transfer of knowledge, I would say, in a classroom setup, because there is not only the transfer of knowledge, it's also a transfer of your the three factors in teaching, which is cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So all of this could be seen in a classroom, but not in an online classroom. Of course, sometimes yung importante rin yung mga factors ng affection or psychomotor. No? So the learning is not just cognitive. So we must have this holistic approach as far as learning is concerned. Thank you Ma'am LHL for dropping by. So yan, sustainability is another purpose of research, to sustain a particular system, management, or policy, perhaps to increase production and other things. Another is to develop tools for assessing effectiveness. So we need research for assessment, as assessment tool, no? We need to develop tools for assessment. Assessment in terms of effectiveness. Effectiveness, no? Whether that be effectiveness of a particular system, again, policies of production, research, provide solutions to the problems encountered in different areas. So we could assess the effectiveness of a particular system and provide solutions as well. So there must be a provision of solution to a particular situation that we have. All right. So then another category of purposes of research, it develops, evaluates alternative approaches to the educational aspect in any discipline. So it's more of a developmental research, mental and evaluation research, and evaluation. Now, the purpose is for us to have alternatives to the norms, no, alternatives to the what is concurrent, what is current situation, no, particularly on aspect of educational system. So since we are dealing here with a mathematics education, so we are focused on this particular area of discipline where we could have alternative approaches to educational aspects. So marami itong educational aspects. It could be leadership, no, nabanggit ko na to kay AJ no nakaraan, yung aking estudyante. It could be leadership. It could be in terms of leadership management, so that includes the top-bottom approach in leadership. Then we have the policy making, the implementors, no, the classroom teachers, the admin staff, etc. All of these could be part of that educational aspect of leadership. And then we have also your teaching mathematics. Now, these are best practices. We could have alternatives of that, or perhaps learning mathematics on the side of the student, or perhaps best practices in teaching, no, and other things, alternatives for our student, or perhaps methodologies, no, in modeling. There are mathematical concepts that needs to be modeled in software. What could be the best software available that are free, or perhaps they have enterprise editions for educational institution. No? So these are alternatives and subject for developmental and evaluation research. That's another purpose. And then research advances for personal professional qualification of practitioner. So I think this is for personal, of course, the purpose of personal and professional advances. Professional research advances the personal and professional qualification. No? Totoo to. Right now we are on that paradigm wherein we have the Philippine qualification framework, or wherein our educational system is leveled into such framework that whenever we go to our ASEAN counterpart, that's ASEAN qualification reference framework, so there are equivalencies, no? So what will be an equivalent of a batch undergraduate level here in the Philippines that would practice in Thailand, perhaps, or perhaps in Vietnam, in Hanoi, no? So there are equivalencies as far as qualification. So I think we are on that note. I think if my memory is correct, we're on level 7 or 8, is the highest of the qualification, wherein the baseline is our bachelor's and our license. So that would be our entry qualification, level 5 or 6, no, if I'm not mistaken. Because this course is basically part of what we call the teaching profession. So that's another course. Though I would say this is actually an output of research. this qualification framework. And we are actually slowly coping up. Different disciplines are already coping up. For instance, in our case in the electronics engineering profession, so though I'm an educator also, so I'm wearing different. So we have 3 levels of practice. First of all is electronics technician, and then these are actually undergraduate practices. So of course you could take the technician course even in your third year or third year of college. Third year, which is equivalent, perhaps we incorporate here the tech book for electronics technician, tech book. And those who are those who are also graduates from trade school, trade trade schools that are equivalent to what we call electronics technician. But as far as collegiate level is concerned, you must be at least third year of college before taking the electronics technician. And then afterwards, after 5 years before, now it's only 4 years, it's electronics engineer. You could take a licensure examination after you graduate. So that's the prerequisite of taking the board exam. So there are professions that are not regulated. That's why sometimes we call them automatic engineers or instant engineers, because there are different engineering professions that doesn't have any regulation. For instance, computer engineering or industrial engineering. Though industrial engineering has self-regulation, and other fields that doesn't have any board examination. Those only that has board examinations are under regulation of the Professional Regulations Commission, and they will take electronics engineering. And then there is an advanced level, another level that I also, by God's grace, had achieved, a professional electronics engineer. So I'm currently holding this level also. So this is an advanced level. After you have a practice of your profession for 7 years, then you may take again another step in terms of assessing your qualification as far as your practice is concerned. There will be no more, as of the moment, there are no written tests for this, but these are just primarily submissions of documents indicating your practice of profession. So that, and then the board, of course, will the Board of Electronics Engineers will assess whether you will be upgraded to professional level. Okay? So that's, of course, all of these are based on research, no? Mahalaga itong personal, and of course, in the personal level, in terms if you would like to be promoted, you might take as well your graduate studies or master's level, no? That's why my students, I encourage them to take their masters after taking the LET. No, don't be, though the LET is sufficient to teach high school or LM depending on your majorship. However, there are occasions that we need also to have some other income, like taking part-time in the college teaching. So the minimum qualification is a master's level, no? So master's degree. So yan, kailangan mong magkaroon ng master's degree para makapagturo. So ang rule of thumb kasi, you should be 1 level up sa iyong estudyante. So if you would like to take a master's on the master's level, you should be a doctoral level. If you would like to teach in the doctoral level, of course, doctoral level plus experience, and if necessary, you have a postdoctoral research or activities. So yun po yun. So this is fluid, no? Even in other institutions, perhaps their experience. So all of these guys are actually part of your personal professional qualification. That's the purpose of research. So may mga ganyang output, no? Okay? So yan, mga kapatid. And then next to that, Alright, acknowledging. Oh, salamat sa, ayan, tinatamsak pala tayo. Salamat, Madam. Madam Churcher, thank you. So, thank you, Madam. Ayan. Salamat po, Madam, sa inyong patamsak grade. Ma'am Ilocanang Inday and the rest of the team, thank you. Thank you, Madam, ha. Dahil dyan, teka, palakpak lang sa katawa Salamat, Madam, ha, because I'm having a course. Thank you for dropping by. Salamat, Ma'am, ha. Ma'am Ilocana, ikaw munang may jacket ngayon, ha. Saka na yung iba. Ayan, salamat sa inyo. Thank you for dropping by my live stream. I'm lecturing on MAT181 Research in Mathematics. This is an undergrad course for senior students. Salamat, Madam, ha. Fourth year secondary. Hindi to senior high school, ha. Ito yung mga fourth year senior student for our undergraduate. So they are already in their fourth year prior to their field study. Okay? So ayan po. Salamat po, Madam. Thank you. Thank you, guys, ha, for your thumbs up grade. Really appreciate your presence, all of you. Hindi ko na kayo mabanggit isa-isa. Ayan, napakadami nyo. Napakadami nyo loyal ni Madam. Salamat, Ma'am Churcher, no? Ayan. So, si Ma'am Churcher is also our, ayan, for our Facebook live stream. Ma'am Ilocana has live stream. Alauna, Madam, no? 1 p.m. So, everyday po yan. So, dahil broadcast din tayo sa ating Facebook live stream, no? May mga YouTuber din dyan. So, just type Ilocanang Inday, Poetry Lover. Ayan. At makikita nyo ang isang ayan, ang isang magandang guro. Ayan, si Madam. Ayan, guro din yan si Madam, Ayan. Salamat po. Thank you, Ma'am Ilocanang Inday, for dropping by our live stream. We really appreciate your presence. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Ayan, so tayo po ay sinugod. Ang tawag dyan ay thumbs up grade, where in some of the live stream will go to another live stream to show their support. Ayan po. In terms of their showing support by putting some message on the live chat. Ayan po, nakikita natin. Alright, so ayan po. Nasaan na ba tayo? Alright, so yan yung mga makikita nating purposes, no? Next to this is the goal. Yung goal, no? I think goal is more general. So, tingnan natin yung ano dito, yung goal according to Almeida or his research in 2016. No? Tama, I'm also using a research-based, perhaps on his master's or on his graduate paper, perhaps. So, goals of mathematics, or goals, rather, of research. Ayan. So, we have goals of research. So, first is to produce evidence-based practice. Ayan, research in terms of our practice, no? As apply now as being an educator. So, research will produce evidence-based practice. So, what do I mean by this? No, based on research, makakagawa tayo ng mga evidence-based practice, perhaps in terms of our teaching mathematics. Halimbawa, teaching mathematics. What are the teaching math? What are the effective tools? Or perhaps strategies, no? Teaching strategies. No? So all of this we could derive from research, no? Research. So we could derive this from research, no? Itong mga bagay na ito. So perhaps teaching math, no? Effectiveness, no? Effectivity in terms of tools, strategies, no? What are those effective tools, no? In terms of that age group, no? So each age group has different strategies, has different methodologies, no? But in college, normally, ayan, kakayanin na natin. Mga flexible naman itong college students. Ayan, to produce evidence-based practice. Ayan po, and teaching mathematics, no? So yan po ang isa natin. So sabi nga dito, every discipline or institution must provide the best practice. Yan, yung sinasabi natin. Yung effective tools or sometimes other term for that is what we call best practices. So evidence-based siya, best practices. Yan. Based on research studies. For example, practitioner must ensure that she is able to provide the best teaching practices as proven by research. No? So, yung mga ganon. In fact, you could have your personal research, no? No, lalo na yung mga mahabang panahon na dito. No? For me personally, I've been teaching for more than 20 years. This is my 21st year in teaching. Though in different platform, I've been engaged into classroom teaching since up to 2016. Then, I have a shift in online, more on asynchronous teaching, more on flexible teaching, and then now becoming involved again to synchronous type of platform because of the pandemic. Then we are using this online platform. So I've been into different platforms, but majority of my experience is in classroom teaching. So nevertheless, I already have, though this hindi naman talaga ano to, no, yung at least on my experience, I will know the best that the best possible methodologies I could use in teaching a particular course. Because in teaching math, there are variations, of course, in teaching methodologies. Yung style mo sa calculus, hindi mo pwedeng gamitin yan style sa algebra. At yung style mo sa calculus, hindi mo pwedeng style sa modern geometry. Lalo na pag magtuturo ka ng abstract algebra, malayong-malayo ang style. Kasi though, of course, these are mathematics course, basically computational, but they have different approaches, no, in presenting the core ideas of ayan, yung mga iba pa nating salamat po lahat dun sa mga humabol pa po. Salamat po sa Ilocanang Inday team, the Poetry Lover. Thank you for thank you for your thumbs up grade. I really appreciate your presence yan, in our live stream, both for our YouTube as well as our Facebook live stream. Ayan po, so effective tools, best practices, no? So mahalaga yan, no? Yung mga approaches, no? Methodologies, no? Perhaps minsan maimbitahan ka sa isang seminar na hindi mo alam yung population you hear. Perhaps you could ask what are the basic information of the audience so that you could interact to them more effectively, no? So yung mga ganong approaches, no? Pero as time goes by, no, nagiging automatic na yun sa inyo. Nagkakaroon ng automatic minsan, no, kung masyadong highly engaged yung mga audience, you'll make use of this to capitalize their high engagement, no, for them to become productive and perhaps to learn in various activities, no. So yun, napakahalaga nito that we should produce an evidence-based practice, no. So of course, another goal of research is to establish credibility. Establish credibility on the profession. Yan, as far as your discipline is concerned. For my case, my doctoral is in theology and ministry. So, yan, I have a credibility, no, in discussing those items, no. So in my case, this is my post doctor of ministry. Now, this is just for example, this is not to brag myself. Ministry program, my specialization is in pastoral leadership. Because I develop a particular variables, no. So relation of these variables, no, uh, what are the responsibilities that should be the main concern of a pastor, and then secondary and under interleaving variables, no. So may mga ganyan tayong mga na-discover dun sa research, no. So as far as my, and then for my master's level, MA in Theological Studies, this one, I have a research in diaconal ministry. So these are examples where we could be credible, no? Credibility in the profession, in our discipline, no? We could have this, whether we could be top as a resource speaker perhaps, or perhaps in the church community, no, where I belong. I could use these materials to edify our members, or perhaps to share my knowledge to other people, no? Because based on research, now these are research-based outputs that we could share, no? So there are credibility as far as research is concerned. So this is not just a hearsay. These are not just your intuition, but if you will base your statement on research, there will be more credibility on what you're saying. Ayan po yan, mga kapatid. So napakahalaga niyan, no? Of course, so that's another goal. And then thirdly, to observe accountability to the profession. There must be an accountability to the profession. Okay, so every action conducted by a profession must have a rationale. There must be a purpose, a goal. So, and there are principles to follow. Why a teacher has to prepare his curriculum or syllabus, no? Even at the start, no, that's my usual practice to introduce the course, or even the other professor to introduce the course by giving out the outline, explaining some details, and perhaps giving the idea to the student what will be the flow of study, no, within this semester, no. So these are things that are we need to consider. Yeah, to observe accountability to the profession. Every action conducted by a profession must have a rationale. So these are principles why a teacher has to prepare syllabus or curriculum, why a manager needs to plan, why a teacher needs to conduct studies. All professionals must be accountable for each task that he performs. Of course, no, napakahalaga niyan. And of course, this we are guided by our own oath of practice, no. Yung accountability is also equivalent to the oath of practice that each of one of us are expected, no. So, and doing research, no, would maximize our accountability to the profession. Okay. Another one is to promote cost-effective through documentation. Yan. So, yung mahalaga rin yung documentation, no? So, cost effectiveness through documentation. Findings or research must be shared to individuals, no? Ito na pumapasok yung sharing to individuals, groups, or community. Yan, community or organization, no? In like manner, for which the study is intended. It is useless if the results are not made public. Yan. So if not made public, no, na perhaps yan, yung mga research natin, yung mga kahit yung mga mini research nyo kapag yan dictionary, it's useless. No, it's not shared to individuals, communities, or the concerned community. No, sharing the result to others whom it may benefit makes the research cost effective. So, nagiging cost effective siya kapag sinare mo sa mga kinauukulan dun sa population intended for that research. Lalo yung educational research intended for, of course, for the educational sector. So, the management, leadership, the faculty, or even the students, no? So, or non-teaching personnel. So all of this. And then there is a quotation here, if I may quote, that knowledge shared is, ito napakaganda nito, is knowledge squared. Yeah, whenever you share knowledge, it has its multiplying effect. Meron siyang, or it could be exponentiated, or it could be squared. No? So, parang rename lang siya. Pero ang point talaga dito, whenever you share knowledge, siguro that's also the purpose of our morning devotion. Every day, we are conducting morning devotion, 6 a.m. It's also to share, so that it will, perhaps, on the lives of the people that listen, it could be expanded. So, yun yung makikita natin doon. Okay. So, briefly, we could put that in reading. Some of the modules are details. Next to this are the characteristics of research. Yan, characteristics of research. So, okay, to qualify as research, the process must have certain characteristics. Alright? So, it must be controlled. No? So, first and foremost, controlled. So, there are factors that affect the outcome. A particular event is seldom the result of one-to-one relationship. Now, of course, these are multiple factors, some relationship. It is important to be able to link the links with the causes and vice versa. So it must be controlled, no? In terms of the input variables as well as the output variables. So that's why we have this concept of input, process, and output. So there must be control on the variable. So what are the parameters involved? Is this research only for secondary student? Still very big. What particular secondary student? It must be for math majors or English majors, on what level, etc. So there must be control on that variable. Control implies that imploring causality in relation of two variables. No? So yung lalo na yung mga may relational studies, the studies to set up a way that minimizes the effects of one other factors affecting the relationship. This can be achieved in the physical sciences, as most of the research is done in the laboratory. However, for social sciences, just like education, it's difficult as research is carried out on issues relating to human beings living in society where such controls are impossible. Of course, there must be a particular control, no, ng variable. No? Hindi pwedeng out of control yung research. So, hindi talaga research yun kung out of control. And then rigorous. Okay, rigorous in the sense that it ensures procedures are followed. Rigid procedures in terms of the research process. Followed to find answers to questions that are relevant, appropriate, and justified. So, relevant siya. Yung mga questions na yan, and then appropriate to your research, and then it will have some justifications or answers. Then, as a while ago, I mentioned system or systematic. There must be a systematic character, procedures adopted to undertake an investigation, follow a certain logical sequence. There must be a logical sequence of research. So that's our purpose here. No? Perhaps on our midterm, will look into the methods of research. This is just a foundation, no? Or fundamentals of research, but eventually we'll be discussing the processes in research. So there must be a systematic way wherein you could undertake an investigation in a logical fashion. Alright? And this should be valid and verified. So dito minsan nagkakaproblema itong research. Implies whatever one can conclude on the basis of the findings is correct and can be verified by others also. There are cross-examination by other experts of the field, perhaps in the instruments that you will be using. This must be validated and verified by experts. So before you conduct a particular study using a particular instrument, no? Lalo na yung instrument na gagamitin mo ay hindi siya yung tinatawag natin na ano bang tawag doon sa ano na yun? Standardized, no? Yung mga standardized question, walang problema yon. It's already validated and verified. No? However, for some research that you need to craft your own instrument, it needs to be validated and verified as well. Number 5, empirical. So characteristic, any conclusion drawn is based upon hard evidence, no, empirical, gathered from information collected from real-life experience or observation. So empirical. So hindi ka lang basta arbitrarily magko-conclude without any basis, no? So hindi ganun. Hindi lang pakiramdam. It should be based on solid evidence. Alright, number 6, it must be critical. Okay, what do you mean by critical? It's not something that will draw the researcher close to death. No, it's not the critical sense, but this is an investigation that is free from any drawbacks. And the process and the procedures used must be able to withstand critical scrutiny or the difficult and uncontrolled situation the research may face. Perhaps another characteristic of research is to include critical and systematic is transparent. There must be transparency. No? It aims methods, assumptions, arguments, data, and claims are stated explicitly and clearly. So there must be transparency. Even the results and their supporting justification are disclosed fully, taking care to minimize the danger of his interpretation made widely available. Kasi yung researchers idea yung nandun, no? Yun ang minimize natin yung danger ng personal interpretation rather than just being transparent to the result of your research. Alright. So the use of research, so we have usage, no? So I think medyo okay na tayo. Sige. First is basic research. Okay, basic research, it's a research that advances fundamental knowledge about the human world. It focuses on refuting or supporting theories that explain how the world operates. So there must be this explanation or supporting theories that explain how the world operates, what makes things happen, why social relations are a certain way, and why social change. So there must be this research that advances fundamental knowledge. Alright? And then yung applied research, ito talaga yung basic, no? Yun yung kaninang tinutukoy natin, exploratory. Yung exploratory research. These are basic research. So yun talaga yung pagbabatayan ng future researches. So yung mga empirical data na yan. No? And then we have applied. Okay, applied research. Teka, nawala na yung aking ano. Ayan. So, applied research is a research where researchers try to solve problems or help practitioners accomplish tasks. It is frequently a descriptive research and its main task is for immediate practical use. Yan, applied research. Meron ka ng base research, i-apply mo na lang sa current practice mo. So, yun. So, yun yung applied research. You have already the theory that will back you up. You have the conceptual framework, the theoretical framework that will be the foundation of your research. So, yan po yan. Research were to solve problems. No? So, this is more of an immediate problem solving. So, basic and applied research both explicitly scientific method to answer question at hand. The community is the primary consumer of the basic research. The consumers of applied research are practitioners, such as teachers, case workers, and decision makers. So more on the practice, nandiyan yung applied, yung basic more on the community in general. So under applied research, we have some of the types here. The first of all is the action research. Okay, action research is a disciplined process of inquiry conducting by and by those taking an action. Primary reason for engaging in action research is to assist the action. So, yung action o yung pagkilos in terms of decision could be assisted by a research. Yan. In improving and or refining his or her action. In terms of practice of teaching, the action is the teaching. In terms of educational manager, perhaps his leadership or management style. So we could refine that, or we could have improvement as far as their action is concerned. Practitioners who engage in action research find it to be an empowering experience. Yes, no? So these are empowering experience. Action research has a positive effect for any reason. It is always relevant to the participant. Kasi he's the one to take action and he's assisting his action by a research. That's why it's called action research. Relevance is guaranteed because the focus of the research project is because the focus of each of the research project is determined by the researchers who are the primary consumer or the one that will utilize that research. Yan po yan. So, meron pang ibang mga applied research dito, perhaps impact assessment. And then we have also evaluation research as part of your applied research. Okay, impact assessment is used to estimate the consequence of a planned change. Such assessment is used for planning and making choices among policies to make an impact assessment. So if there are variations or perhaps changes on a particular decision making, what will be the impact of that change or variation? So that is impact assessment research. And then we have evaluation. Process of establishing value judgment based on evidence about achievement of the goals at a proper time. It measures effectiveness of a program, policy, or way of doing something. Evaluation. So, evaluating a particular process, a particular program, or policy is what we call evaluation research. In a duration of time, of course, there's a period of time. There's a time frame for that. And for evaluation research, there are two. So we have formative. So it's a built-in monitoring continuous feedback on the program used for program management, formative research, and then we have the summative. Evaluation looks at the final program outcomes, while formative is a built-in monitor, no, the process, continuous feedback mechanism of the program used for program management. Okay, for a while lang guys, for a while lang. Okay, I'm back. Asan na ba tayo? Ayan, may client ko lang. So, nevertheless, ayan. So, formative, no? So, of course, huli na to, siguro yung ethics in very essentially ethical guidelines, no? Huling portion na to, no? So, matatapos na natin tong first module. Ethical guidelines in research, no? Or considerations. So this is an important aspect of research, no? Yung ethical guidelines. No? So very important that we should have established our professional integrity as far as research is concerned, no? Becomes at stake when a research is carried out without considering moral issues, no? Particularly moral issues on what ought to be done or what not ought to be done. Now, according to Denscombe, a research in 2002, a notion of ethics closely linked to the idea of morality. Yan, may definition ng ethical practices, no? Of course, yung moral standard in terms of what is right and wrong as far as research is concerned, no? So ayan yung makikita natin diyan, no? The notion of ethics closely linked to the idea of morality, and the ethics concern the system of moral principles by which individual can judge their action as right or wrong, or good and bad. Ethics in research calls for a moral perspective rather than the practical logical perspective related to research. So on top of the logical, on top of the practical perspectives of research, there must be an ethical consideration. Okay, there must be an ethical consideration, mga kapatid. Yan po yung makikita natin dyan. So, Brockman, on his research in 2016, has some ethical question guides for researcher at the start of the research. So, this is very insightful. Okay, let's consider these questions. No? First of all, what are the beneficial consequences of the study? Who will benefit from this study? Of the study. So, very important to. No? Dapat matukoy natin to. Who will be the beneficiary of the study? To what community? Baka ikaw pinagre-research ng mga sindikato tungkol sa anong pinakamagandang timpla ng droga, halimbawa. O yan. So, may ethical consideration yan. As a researcher, will you make use of your research prowess for such a moral issue? No? So, yun yung makikita natin dyan. No? So, who will benefit? And then, how can informed consent of the participants be obtained? So, yun minsan, yung informed consent. Minsan, di tayo nagpapaalam, no? Kinukunan pala natin ng information. So, dapat informed yung ating mga participant of the research. Lalo na yung mga those who have been engaged to these participants on our survey or perhaps interview in our small group discussion or other things, no? So how can informed consent of the participants be obtained? So, napakahalagang aspeto nito. So, is the participants really have a consent So, yun, dapat makita natin yung confidentiality. That's another aspect where we could ayan, so yung how can confidentiality of the participants be protected. So very important issue as far as ethics is concerned, yung confidentiality. Perhaps yung beneficial consequence, kung hindi ko na ianin po, beneficial consequence of the study. Informed consent of participants be obtained. And then thirdly is the consequence of the study. Yung mga kahinatnan ng pag-aaral, ano ba? Ito ba'y makakabuti para doon sa mga participants o hindi? And then, of course, yung how will the researcher's role affect the study? Affect the study. So, yung role ng isang researcher doon sa ano. Baka meron siyang ini-input na personal niyang input. No, hindi pwede yun. Dapat he let the process of research go on without inputting his own personal ideas to the research. And then in the context of social science, no, they have developed an ethical theory based on 4 principles. No? So let's go as far as social science, wherein education is part of that social science process, social sciences. So number 1 is non-maleficence. Research should avoid harming participants. Okay, wala dapat masasaktan, walang ma-open. Sa bagay subjective 'yon, no? Pero yung in terms of physical harm or perhaps other means where they could avoid harming the participant, that's non-maleficence. Bubol na tuloy ako. And then beneficence. So this is research on human subject should produce some positive and identifiable benefit rather than carried out for its own sake. Yan lang, for the sake of research lang. Hindi talaga nakapag-develop ng positive benefit doon sa respondents, doon sa mga beneficiaries. Then of course, another is autonomy or self-determination. Research participant values decision should be respected. So autonomy, may kalayaan o self-determination yung mga participants ng research. Okay, hindi siya madidiktahan dapat. Hindi siya, yan ang isagot mo, wag to. Kaya minsan yung mga ganyan manipulasyon ng ano. No? Then of course, justice. No? It's very important aspect of the ethical role of a researcher. All people should be treated equally. Yan po mga kapatid. So all these ethical concerns secondly pertain to ethical considerations. First, now of course, we must also look in general the integrity of the researcher, yung integridad niya. Okay, researcher must be professionally in pursuit of truth. O yun talagang layunin niya, malalaman ng katotohanan based on the problem of the research problem, and he must pursue truth, pursuit of truth. Yan dapat ang makita natin sa isang researcher, no? May integridad. They should be committed to discover and reporting things as honestly as possible. So yan dapat, no? So wala dapat makikita natin yung integrity of the researcher, no? Another is deception and misrepresentation must be avoided. Researcher must not be influenced by other considerations except only for what is truth of the matter. And then, of course, informed consent is a principle that is fundamental to the notion of human rights. Yung informed consent. And of course, factor of confidentiality and anonymity. So, kung maaari, hindi natin i-reveal yung mga respondents natin, should take measures to safeguard the confidentiality of information and to ensure non-disclosure of those who are participants of the research. Ayan, so that ends our Module 1. By next week, Lord willing, we are considering the Module 2 and 3. Perhaps, if AJ would come in on our live stream, we will be discussing the classification and types of research, Module 2, and the conceptualizing of research study. Ayan, so mga of course, we'll be discussing that within the time frame of 1.5 hours. And then that would be part of your prelim examination. Okay? So, yon. So, we thank the Lord for this. No? Hopefully, you gain something on these topics that we have discussed. Okay? So, that's it for our week number 5. Okay? So, we thank the Lord for this opportunity. Let's close in a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for this time. Thank you for this opportunity where we could look into some of the study or this a particular study on research, fundamentals of research. I pray, Lord, that we may have gained knowledge on this and that this will be a preparation to our actual research process, particularly as AJ would be conducting a research study on his chosen discipline. We thank you, Lord, for this day. I pray also for AJ. There are circumstances that he is not able to join our Google meeting. I pray, Lord, for your guidance and grace to him as well. We thank you, Lord, for this opportunity, even sharing this to our community in YouTube as well as in Facebook live stream. We thank you, Lord, and bless your people. This is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen. Okay. Thank you, guys. See you again next week for week number 6. No? So that is September 16. So we'll meet again for the last time here on this prelim period. Then we will move on to our actual research process on midterm. Starting midterm, our student will be already conceptualizing the problem. That's a very basic. The problem of the researcher is the problem themselves. So if you don't have a problem, that is your problem as far as research is concerned. Okay? So see you guys next time. God bless us all and to God be the glory.